cousins, because here comes that friendly family who insists on bringing you some excitement. There's Bo and Luke Duke, Daisy, Uncle Jesse, Crazy Cooter, and those two limp-lipped Wallace leaders, Sheriff Roscoe and Boss Hogg. So bust up some boredom and grab a real good time with the Dukes of Hazzard.
Friday night at 9 here on TV8.
All right, so you can sing, right?
I can sing.
Yeah, you're going to be singing the theme song, right?
I don't think we really want that to happen. I'm not sure if that's the best way to go.
We're not going to start that way. Okay, I gotcha. All right, well, that's too bad. I guess I'll just have to edit the theme song in or something.
Yeah, do a little. Everyone would rather hear Waylon than me sing the theme song. That's for sure.
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw, been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hills. Someday the mountain might get them, but the law never will. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Just a good old boy, they wouldn't change if they could. Fighting the system like a true modern day Robin Hood.
Lord of omens, give me sight beyond sight.
Greetings, Starfighter. You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada. Get ready? Prepare for blast-off.
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Remember, no matter where you go, there you are.
This is 80s Reboot Overdrive Podcast.
We were dancing just like Swayze when Jennifer Grey had nose. Oh, how I miss the 80s, but I'm too young to really know. Too young to know.
Oh my god. That is like so dated.
This is 80s Reboot Overdrive, and I am Dave. Online, I have got... Can I call you Superfan?
Sure, you can call me anything you want.
Superfan Larry Franks.
How you doing, Dave?
I'm so glad that we finally got online and we're finally able to talk. We're going to be talking all about the adventures of the fast-driving, rubber-burning Duke Boys of Hazzard County, which was a very iconic TV show, smack dab right there in our lovable 1980s from 1979 to 1985. Now, Larry, you, looking at your blog, looking at your Twitter feed, I mean, we've been interacting for a little while, and you are just completely into Dukes of Hazzard.
I certainly am. I have been a Dukes of Hazzard fan as long as I can remember. Definitely a lifelong fan. It's always been a huge part of my life.
So how old are you?
I am 34.
34.
I was actually born 2 years after the show started.
So then it's been something you've been watching since birth?
Yes, exactly. My sister was into it from the beginning. Because she was so into it, I got so into it, and it was always a part of my life.
That is so cool. So it's just, when did you start the collection part of it?
I mean, I always loved it way back from, because I'm Larry Franks the third. The story goes, we had so many Larry Frankses. There was my grandfather, my dad. We had some cousins named Larrys. There was Larrys everywhere, so they needed something to call me, and somehow Bo Duke stuck. So that's just my name with my family, and it's always has been. So that's just I think that's why I really latched onto it so much. But then also my grandparents, they knew how much I loved it. So anytime they went shopping, anytime they went anywhere, they bought me a 1/64 scale Ertl General Lee. Anytime they went out, they brought one back. So I had so many of them growing up, 30, 40 of them. And that, I mean, I always had General Lees, and then the 125s, I had a ton of those as well. And my grandparents would tell me, buy one and keep one in the package. Always keep one nice. So that kind of made me, think about collecting. And basically anybody would buy Dukes of Hazzard stuff. They'd always buy me those kind of gifts. So it just, from birth, I always had Dukes of Hazzard toys.
You've always kept like one in the box? Is that what to amass your collection? Well, I mean, first off, how big is your collection?
I have thousands of pieces. It's not, unfortunately, it's mostly in bins right now. So it's not like out on display. It's cataloged more or less, but as far as how many pieces I have, I'm not sure. I mean, it's definitely huge. It's one of the biggest out there. And there's a lot of pieces I kind of say were the original pieces, which were things, my parents and my grandparents bought me. And I tried as much as I could back then to keep one in the box and to, open one and play with one and play with several. I definitely beat up my toys when I was a kid, but I always, knew that I had a nice one somewhere. So yeah, that's more or less how it started. But then, just like any other collector, once eBay came along, just kind of went crazy from there.
So is there anything that's been on your want list forever that you haven't gotten?
Well, a real General Lee. I mean, that's like the biggest thing that I don't have is a 1969 Dodge Charger. That will happen. It just hasn't happened yet. But besides that, collectible wise, I've been very fortunate, especially since this blog has really added to my fandom. I have gotten some just absolutely crazy pieces that I never thought I'd add to my collection. And so there are a couple things on the want list, but so many of those check boxes have been checked in the last couple years that I'm just very fortunate in that era, in that aspect.
Was there anything that you had gotten over the course that like you didn't realize that had existed, and then all of a sudden, once you became aware of it, then it was just like, oh, I've got to have it now?
Well, I would say the rarest item, there's a lot of different things. There's green used things, stuff like that, one-off items. But I really like to go make the beef of my collection is the commercially produced items. So in my opinion, the absolute rarest commercially produced item, and something that for years I didn't know still existed because I didn't know any survived. But I was fortunate enough to add one to my collection, and it's now the only one known in existence. It is the Dukes of Hazzard swimming pool.
There's a Dukes of Hazzard swimming pool?
There is. I mean, it's basically the same pool that that they would sell 30 of out in front of the Dollar General now. That really flimsy, thin swimming pool that if a kid would use twice, it would be broken. They made those in 1981. And they're printed with the Dukes of Hazzard on it. And for some time, it was like a myth. People thought, they remembered having one as a kid, but they were so, flimsy, they cracked, they got thrown away. I had a couple years ago, someone sent me a picture of them in theirs back in the 80s. So that was like the proof that they did exist. And I was thinking maybe I'll find a piece of one, a broken piece or something. But 2 years ago, I found one. It was an actual barn find. A barn find is definitely something that happens in the car world, where you find somebody put an old Corvette or an old Charger in a barn and forgot about it. But it happened with me with this swimming pool. Somebody out of Indiana said that their grandfather bought one and put it in the rafters of the barn because he forgot to bring it out. 35 years later, somebody brings it out. It's in absolutely perfect condition, flimsy as can be, but I have it now. I got it shipped here to Pennsylvania, and it is definitely the centerpiece of my collection. And no other collector out there has one. No one even knew. Most people don't know they existed, but it is definitely it's my showpiece. I'm so happy I have it. It's about 5 feet in diameter, and it is beautiful. It is really, really something.
So it's not like anything you're ever going to set up in the yard and like go play in.
No, I don't think I'm going to put the slip and slide next to it and jump in it or anything. No, definitely not that. In my family, we didn't have the slip and slide. We had the banana slide, or some kind of knockoff, I remember. But Yeah, I won't be adding that to the end of the slide at all.
Right, that you don't want the lawn darts to hurt it. So
it's definitely a very protected place right now.
gotcha. Looking at your blog, Duke's Collector, blogspot.com.
Yes.
Tell me about Daisy Country.
Daisy Country is something we're pretty excited about. I am very fortunate to have a very good relationship with the cast, especially Cooter, Ben Jones, and his wife Elma, as well as Catherine Bach. I've just over the years gotten close with them, and I'm very fortunate to have such great access, and I help them out as much as I can. And so just last weekend, we had the grand opening of Daisy Country, which, for people who don't know, Cooter's Place is a basically Dukes of Hazzard museum shrine. I mean, it's just wonderful. Cooter's Place is a really, really special place. It's a Dukes of Hazzard dream come true, owned by Ben Jones and his wife Elma. And they currently have 3 locations. They have one, the original was in Spearyville, Virginia, and once that's kind of in the middle of it's just out in the mountains, not really near anything. And they opened that up in 1998, and it got so big, it got too big. After a few years, they had to close that one down, but they went to more touristy areas. They went to Nashville and Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and they closed Spearyville. And then recently they reopened Spearyville because that's actually where Ben and Elma live. I've been very active in all of those locations. And recently they decided that Catherine Bach wants to join in on the fun. She has done many, many appearances and stuff there, but recently she decided to partner up. So she came into the fold, and it's the back portion of Cooter's Place in Nashville, and it's basically a store and museum dedicated to just Daisy Duke. And she has her own fashion sense. Obviously she invented Daisy Dukes, and so it's a lot of her fashion designs, her clothing. And we had the grand opening last week, and it was just such a blast. We had a few thousand people down for the grand opening. We had some really cool Lego things involved we can talk about, and it's just a very, very cool place. And it's great that Cooter's Place, after all these years, is still expanding and just bringing in new fans and just having just still going. It's great that the Dukes of Hazzard is alive at Cooter's Place in Daisy Country.
Yeah, just looking at the pictures, I mean, she is just throughout the years has been just maintained to be so beautiful. She's wonderful.
She really is, and she is such a great person to talk to. I mean, she is so connected to everything Hollywood. She knows everybody. She is just it's amazing to talk to her, and especially the access I get whenever I get to have some one-on-one conversations with her. She is just so much fun to talk to, and she really loves this hobby. She really loves the fans, and it really shows. One thing at Cooter's Place, we have a lot of really cool interactions with the cast members. Just next month in May 21st and 22nd, Tom Wopat will be at Cooter's Place in Nashville, and he will have both days, Saturday and Sunday, he'll have some autograph signing, and he's also doing a small venue, very intimate concert right next door to Cooter's Place. So that's one thing to look forward to. A lot of fans might want to get a chance to go meet Luke Duke. It's a lot of fun. That's May 21st and 22nd at Cooter's Place in Nashville, Tennessee.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Now, what about, have you had a lot of access to the other stars like John Schneider, Tom Wopat?
I have. The first time I ever met both of them was in the year 2000, and I waited in line for 8 hours. It was the first time I was ever at a Dukes of Hazzard event, and my world really changed that day. I had loved these guys my entire life. I was 19 years old, and they had come to Pennsylvania for a show and a concert, and they did a signing, and I just didn't think that was possible. I waited in line for 8 hours, and then I finally got to meet them, and they were so awesome. And then it seemed like everything changed. I mean, I was just a fan that got to just meet them at autograph sessions. Over the next few years, I kind of got deeper and deeper into this hobby, and I've just gotten so lucky to meet everybody as much time as I can. And then now to have the access I do. Last Christmas, a little over a year and a half ago, for the blog, I got to sit down and interview John Schneider and Tom Wopat. Just me with the two of them. We got a nice 10-minute long video interview, and those kind of things. I mean, they're so special to me. The fact that whenever we do these events, I mean, I have such great access to them. I get to go over and hang out with them, and it's so special for me. I really, really am just a fortunate Dukes of Hazzard fan. Everyone else, I mean, Sonny Schroyer, who played Enos, and Rick Hurst, who played Cletus, they are just awesome guys. Some of the nicest guys you ever get to meet. And the fact that I can consider them all friends is just absolutely amazing. And James Best as well. We just lost him last year, but he is just he was such a great guy. That the fact that I know them all. I mean, if you had told me this 16 years ago, 20 years ago, whenever I was a kid loving the Dukes, that I could call the Dukes of Hazzard my friends, it just blows my mind every day.
So are you one of those guys that has like all the like the shows memorized? Like you're like, oh, that one scene, episode 3 on, season 2 or something like that. Are you, do you have that kind of recollection of all the episodes?
A lot of the episodes I do. It's not so much I could say what number it is. I mean, the first season, the first 5, I can, spout off the names of the first 5 episodes, stuff like that. I can, if you tell me a name of an episode, I pretty much know what season it's in. But as far, there's definitely some people who might be more familiar with the scripts than I am, but I have very general, I mean, more so than general. I do have a lot of knowledge about the Dukes, but as far as, exactly the lines, maybe I'm being modest. I don't know. Yeah, I know a lot. I know a lot about the Dukes. So.
Well, what I was relating it to was there was a skit on Saturday Night Live where William Shatner was at a Star Trek convention, and then all the fans were like, "Oh, do you remember that time that you were opening the safe on episode 39 or something like that?" And my friends had a bet. What was the combination? And it was just like, get a life. That was his response. So I was just wondering, do you run into those kind of questions where you're like, "Oh, you remember that scene and you did this? Can you tell me a little more about that or something?" Or
that's not something I would ask. We definitely run into that. When I have the good fortune of hosting Q&As with the cast. We had one at Daisy Country, and we did one a couple years before. So I'm the guy with the microphone running around, and the cast, the cast is at the front. A lot of times I prepare my own questions, and I go out in the audience and ask the questions. And we do have sometimes when people say, "Why did you do this?" And I say, "Well, while the cast is still answering the question before, I'll talk to the person who's asking the question. I say, that's not really the kind of question we want to ask. We kind of want to, have a question they can build on and tell the whole story about." So that happens a lot, but I try to, steer my fellow fans away from those questions, and I definitely don't ask those questions myself.
I gotcha.
It's just, I mean, I kind of know how to roll with it, so I know what you mean, but yeah, I try not to, get that specific. But people can ask me that. I can definitely, because of my knowledge of the show, I can get into those details and kind of, explain why Luke was driving in this episode, or where Cooter was, and how come Roscoe was replaced in this episode. He was off in the police academy, but in real life, he was on strike and stuff like that. So I can take those questions, but we don't really need to ask, Ben Jones those kind of questions.
Right. Gotcha. All right. So I've got to ask, when they did the Duke replacements, what'd you think of that?
Well, back then, whenever I was 3 or 4, it was just weird. I didn't know why it happened. Once I, became more knowledgeable of the show, the things that the producers did to the cast back then is just, it's really strange to think that they got away with that kind of stuff then compared to the power that actors have now. I mean, so before they replaced Bo and Luke with Coy and Vance, Ben Jones, who played Cooter, and James Best, who played Roscoe, had already left the show. Basically, they went on strike, and they, Ben Jones he felt that his character should have had a beard. He thought that this Southern guy, this Southern mechanic, should have had a beard, and the producer said, "No, shave it." And that was what it was. And, Ben had to leave the show for a while. And then they had L.B. Davenport, Cooter's cousin, come in for a week. And then B.B. Davenport, Cooter's other cousin, came in for a couple weeks. And just strange things like that. And then the next season, James Best, his complaint, and this is the craziest, the fact they didn't give him this was nuts, but he wanted ample changing and dressing rooms. A lot of times his character is in the pond. He has to get muddy. He doesn't want to have to change outside. He wanted just a nice trailer for the scenes where they weren't, in the studio, and that's what he wanted, and they wouldn't give it to him, and so he left the show. So, for a few weeks there was Sheriff Grady Bird, who was played by the second Darren on Bewitched, and a couple other guys came in, and they had to, and they always explained, Roscoe is off at the police academy training, but it was just so strange that the producers would not give in to what the actors, wanted, and it's just he wanted a trailer is all he wanted. So finally they straightened that out, and they got him a trailer, and he came back because nobody ever had any kind of chemistry with Sorrel Book, Boss Hogg, like James Best did. But you'd think they would have learned their lesson with that. But then here comes season 5, and it's weird to think about that strike because the main complaint that John Schneider and Tom Wopat had was they were not getting paid for the merchandise that was just huge. I mean, like if you think about everything in my collection, they made the weirdest things for Dukes of Hazzard. They made a swimming pool. They made General Lee shaped soap. They made some really like off the wall, like basically they put the Dukes of Hazzard name on everything they could think of. And if it's, if they plastered John Schneider and Tom Wopat's face on these items, you would think that the Duke boys would be getting paid.
Right.
And that was the biggest issue, that Bo and Luke were not getting compensated for what they were, for this merchandise. And Warner Brothers did not want to give in. And they thought, the General Lee is a star of the show, not Bo and Luke. And I mean, how huge of a mistake was that? The ratings plummeted in season 5 with Coy and Vance, and the show never bounced back, in my opinion. I mean, it did go on for 2 more seasons after, those 18 episodes. But if that hadn't happened, I think the show would have gone on for, at least 2 more seasons. I mean, it was just weird to think that, everything in my collection, all these toys, which I love and I, chase and I write about, these are the reasons why Bo and Luke left the show. So it's strange to think about that, but in my opinion, Coy and Vance, they tried, they tried as hard as they can to be, these characters, but the General Lee, as much as I love it, it was not the star of the show. It was definitely a huge aspect of the show. It made the show what it was, but there was no Dukes of Hazzard without Bo and Luke, and season 5 really proved that, in my opinion.
So it was it was their jumping the shark is what happened.
I think so. It was definitely, one of the first nails in the coffin. I mean, so another thing that, John and Tom wanted was better storylines. I mean, if you look back, the show, it's very simplistic. I mean, bad guys coming to town. They partner up with Boss Hogg. Boss Hogg tries to frame Bo and Luke. Bo and Luke have to jump to General Lee to save the day. The bad guys get caught. Boss gets out of it. I mean, that happens in mostly every episode, but it worked. I mean, so, they wanted to try some different kind of episodes, and that was one thing that, they didn't want to just this cookie cutter episode, this storyline that happened every time. So they did try a couple different things in, later seasons, but because of that, we got 2 episodes which are just, so much worse than Coy and Vance episodes. We have the one episode called A Strange Visitor to Hazzard, where an actual alien comes to Hazzard County and interacts with, he actually gets, caught up in the back of the General Lee. Luke calls him Little Cousin, Lil Cousin, which was just, so that was one of the worst episodes, one of the darkest points of the show. And there's another episode called Robot P. Coltrane, where Boss Hogg decides that, he doesn't want to pay Roscoe anymore, and he hires a robot. And it was, as 80s robot as you can be, some guy in a bunch of boxes, and it was just, oh man, it was cheesy. It was cheesy as can be. So, once they tried to go outside the box and, try something different, that's all they could think of. And it was just, oh man. So there's a couple, dark points of that show, but, they did other weird things. There's a whole episode called Cool Hands, Bo and Luke, which is just basically shot for shot remake of Cool Hand Luke. They even say the failure to communicate line. So it was different. And, Hollywood was definitely a different place in that time. I mean, they were just shilling them out every week. We didn't get the depth of, shows we get now. I mean, season long arcs, like something that would be on Daredevil or Game of Thrones, definitely didn't happen in the Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, you had, you bring in a character who this character this week is going to run against Boss Hogg for, all the different elections or all the different county seats that he held. She wins in the end of the episode, but we never hear from her again. I mean, it was just like that kind of stuff happened. But I mean, at the time, TV was more simple. There was only 3 stations. So, the depth didn't really need to be there. That they something was working with the Dukes. It was working by, episode 5, and they kept it going. It was just the same show for the next 7 seasons, but I don't complain. I love every episode, so it works.
Exactly. I think as long as you didn't mess with the formula too much, then yeah, it would work. And it was, yeah, I mean, it was definitely iconic and fun to watch.
Oh yeah. I mean, I definitely don't want to say I'm complaining about the show, because, I mean, I love the show.
Right. Now, did you ever get a chance to? I guess Denver Pyle was probably gone before you really started getting into.
Yes. Sorrel Book Boss Hogg died in 1994, and then Denver Pyle died on Christmas Day 1997. So I never had a chance to meet either of those guys. I really regret not ever meeting Sorrel Book Boss Hogg, because for several years, during the show and then after the show, I mean, this guy was a Yale. I always forget if it's Yale or Harvard. I think it was Yale graduate. He spoke several different languages. This guy was a certified genius, but he loved the character of Boss Hogg. He just absolutely loved being Boss Hogg. And for several years after the show, and at every time he ever did a car show or any kind of appearance, he was always Boss Hogg. He would come with the white suit, the hat, the cigar. He was never out of character, and that just seemed like so much fun. I mean, every kid he would talk to, he would agitate. He would be Boss Hogg, and it saddens me that he didn't get to see the resurgence of the show. The show really went through dark ages after it was off the air. It was gone. I mean, it wasn't in syndication. It wasn't for a couple years. After '85, it was in syndication. But the late '80s until the mid '90s, I call that the dark era of the show. One thing I like to do on my blog is I made up eras of the Dukes of Hazzard. So like the golden era was when the show was on. Then there was the dark era, dark ages, and then once it got picked up in syndication, on national syndication on TNN, again in the late '90s. I mean, that's when it really picked up again. I really wish that he would have seen the resurgence of the show, because he would have loved it. Denver Pyle, he got to see a little bit. He was there whenever TNN picked it up, and he got to do some appearances. And he was in the first reunion movie, and I guess that he was not well during that reunion movie. He had cancer pretty bad, and the stories are that he was, he really had to fight to get through it, but he loved it so much that he got through it. And it's weird. Just a couple days ago was the 19th anniversary of the first reunion movie, which means I'm getting old, because I remember being so excited when that thing was on. I mean, it was just the show had been on TNN for about a year, and it blew up. It was just so big again, and it was so big that they did a reunion movie. They did another one a couple years later, and since '97, I mean, this show has not stopped. I mean, it has just been. I think it a couple times in the early 2000s, it was bigger than it was, way back in the golden era of the show. I mean, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and we have a lot of fun with it. I mean, the fans, we keep getting new fans. It's really fun to, even though the show's not on TV right now. It's just, when I go to events, when I go to Cooters, when I go to, different signings with the cast, I mean, we have 3-year-old fans now. We have 5-year-old fans. It's so much fun because the show is just, it's just a fun show. It's just a fun show about a car that can fly, and, 2 boys that can get out of any trouble they're ever in, and a beautiful girl who will help them or get them out of trouble. More times than not, they need Daisy more than they need anybody else. It's just a fun, good show that we're still gaining fans. That's what I love. I just love to see. I love to talk to kids that are as enthusiastic about it now as I was whenever I was 3. That's so much fun.
And just the fan groups that I've now seen on Facebook, and then also the fan group on Twitter. You got an army. It is great. Yeah, it really is. And the first thing I ever searched on the internet was the General Lee. I've been on the internet for how long? Since mid '90s, and there's always been a big internet presence. I mean, we had a couple huge message boards back when message boards were a big deal. There was just a huge community back then. There's definitely a large community of General Lee owners. They definitely stick together. They have a very nice grouping club, stuff like that. So there was, that was big. Message boards were big for how long? And then, a few years ago, I guess it's been a while now. I mean, the whole Facebook thing and Twitter thing, and then blogs and stuff. So I've kind of,
I don't do the Facebook thing. I'm weird when it comes to social media. I tried to not be on it, Twitter for as long as I can. And once I got on it, I just, it just got to be something that I do more than I think I'm going to do. But so I'm definitely big on Twitter now. I don't do Facebook, but there is definitely a huge Facebook following on it. There's a huge Twitter following, and I think my blog has it's brought in people that wouldn't have a member of a message board back then, and I've brought in a lot of new people who they like the show, but they never really got back on. They haven't searched it too much. And I talk to people all the time because of my blog, and I've been as deep as you can be in the Internet Dukes of Hazzard world since the beginning of it, but until I started this blog in 2012, this has just gone crazy how much I've talked, interacted with people. I get people emailing me all the time. How much is this worth? What is this piece? I haven't seen this since I was a kid. It's so much fun just to interact with people through the blog all the time. And I basically wanted to start the blog just so I could show off my collection, just to kind of have a place to show it off, and just put whatever I wanted to on there. It has, because of my blog, I have gotten so many pieces that, like that swimming pool, the fella who found the pool in his barn, he didn't know what to do with it. He thought maybe someone's going to want this thing, and he contacted me, which, like, the fact that if I didn't have this blog, that pool would have never come my way. It's just so much fun that I owe the pool to my blog, and so many other pieces that I've found because of my blog, really rare pieces. It just blows my mind that I didn't start this earlier. I really love this. Like, writing the blog has been so much fun. I've had a blast in this fan community for so long, but as soon as I started the blog, it's just gotten so much bigger. I have just been having so much more fun, interacting with so many fans and going to events and just talking to people and just being more of a. I guess I'm kind of a public figure in the Dukes world now. I don't really, try to be, but I'll take it if people want to. When I go to events, people know me because of the blog, and that's just so awesome. Like, just the fact that the one event we had, the last time we had the entire cast together in Nashville 3 years ago, it was a great event. It was Dukes of Hazzard Fanfare. I have probably 3 or 4 blog posts all about it. But I had a guy come up to me and said that he had met all the cast. He had seen, he lived in Nashville, and his biggest point to come to this event was to meet me. And it was like that blew my mind. And then it happened a couple more times. Like, people were just, they really enjoyed reading my posts, and I've made so many good friends through this blog. It's just awesome. I really have a lot of fun with it.
One of the people that I found out, looking at your blog before we started talking, was you're even now pals with Quentin Tarantino.
Well, Quentin Tarantino was, the whole story is on the blog, but that was a fun little adventure I had with him. I'm not really sure he would, remember me now. It's been quite a few years, but so the whole story with Quentin Tarantino, I won't go into all the detail I do when I tell this story, but it's a lot of fun. I had just, through a friend, been invited to a local movie premiere for a movie called Dawn of the Dead. It was a
Romero.
George Romero zombie film. Yeah. So it was based in Pittsburgh. I'm from the Pittsburgh area, so it was a movie based in Pittsburgh. So because a buddy of mine got to this premiere, this was in the year 2005, the biggest year of the Dukes of Hazzard, I had gotten myself, just invited to this premiere, and it was just a fun time. We knew that there were going to be some stars there, and the rumor was Quentin Tarantino was going to be there. So there's a joke in the movie that makes fun of my town. Like, it's I live, kind of outside of Pittsburgh, and they say, how was Fayette County? How was Uniontown, Brownsville? And in the movie, because they're going for a supply run, in the movie they say dead. So it was a joke, that town's dead. But it's more of a joke if you live here, because our town is dead. We're, just a backwards, former coal area. So that was funny. I got a bigger kick out of that than anybody else who didn't live in that town. But so at that night, Quentin Tarantino's on the roof. He's just hanging out with his friends, not really interacting. But I find myself in line at the bathroom, and Quentin Tarantino's in front of me. So I have to talk to him. It was just like, this is once in a lifetime I get to talk to Quentin Tarantino. So I bring up that story. I explain to him that joke about the town was, more of a joke about our town. That's why it was funnier to me. And he got a kick out of that. And I talked to him for a minute. Then, we went our separate ways. fast forward to later that summer, because of my great fortune that, the things I get to do in this hobby, I am invited to the actual Hollywood premiere of the Dukes of Hazzard movie starring Johnny Knoxville, Sean William Scott, and Jessica Simpson. So I'm in Hollywood watching this movie at the Chinese theater, just absolutely, mind blowing that I got to do all this. And we're after the red carpet, after walking through, I'm going back to the theater because I ate all my popcorn before the movie started, and they were giving away free popcorn, so I want to go back and get some more. The last row of the theater was Quentin Tarantino and Seth Green. And I kind of noticed, like, oh my, there's Quentin Tarantino and Seth Green. This was August or late July of 2005. Robot Chicken had just started. It was on for maybe 3 months. And so I just noticed that they're there, and I wasn't really going to say anything, but Quentin Tarantino stops me. He says, "Larry?" I was like, "What?" He says, "What are you doing here?" It blew my mind that he remembered me. And so he tells Seth the story about this little story I told him about Pittsburgh and stuff, and about Brownsville and Uniontown, the town I live in. And they get a big kick out of it. And they're laughing. I'm laughing with them, like, holy, I can't believe it. Quentin Tarantino remembers me. And so I say to Seth Green, I said, I really love Robot Chicken, because right off the bat, they had I think in the pilot, they had a Dukes of Hazzard joke on Robot Chicken. So he's really surprised that I knew what it was, because it was just, a new show, and it was underground. It was on at 12:30 at night on Cartoon Network. So I had this great, interaction with Quentin Tarantino and Seth Green, and he remembered me. So it was just amazing. So Quentin Tarantino has some history with the Dukes of Hazzard. He actually studied under James Best, and James Best I think he lived with James Best for a little while he was Roscoe on the Dukes. So he definitely has some love for the Dukes, and the fact that I got to interact with him that night was just the first of amazing things that happened that night. I mean, it was just so much fun.
I didn't even realize there was that connection between Quentin and James Best. That's awesome.
Yeah, and also that's why Tom Wopat was in Django Unchained. Quentin definitely has some love for the Dukes. I actually wrote a whole blog about it. It's in my review about Django Unchained. I kind of connected a lot of dots between Quentin's career and the Dukes, and it's really cool to see those things. I mean, it's just, Dukes runs deep. I mean, a lot of people every stuntman working today on cars, either worked under the Dukes cast or the Dukes stuntmen, or are sons of the Dukes stuntmen. I mean, the Dukes are definitely deep in Hollywood for sure.
That is so awesome. I was just thinking about the that Quentin thing, and I was just like, wow, that's awesome. I don't know how else to put that. I didn't realize there was that connection. Very cool.
Yeah, that night was definitely the best night of my life. I mean, just being at that premiere was just so much fun.
And then you got to interact with the stars of the movie.
I was actually an extra in the movie.
Okay.
Whenever it started, whenever they filmed it in late 2004, early 2005, I was as big as I could be at that point in the hobby. I made some phone calls, and I've ended up talking to casting directors. I said, I'd like to do whatever I can. They said, why don't you come down to Louisiana, and you could be an extra. I mean, it wasn't gonna be anything special. I wasn't like a featured extra or anything, but we'll put you in this crowd scene. I said, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So me and my girlfriend went down there, went to Louisiana, spent a week down there, and we got to be in the crowd. We got to see some filming and stuff. So it was definitely amazing. Once I started talking, people realized that I know what I'm talking about. I know a lot about the Dukes. So we were kind of treated like celebrities down there. It was a fun little experience. And you can see me in the movie during the big race scene when the General Lee wins the race. I jump out of the crowd, and then there's a couple times in throughout those scenes that you could see me. So I thought that was it. That was fun. I got to be in the movie, but I'm always trying to get as much as I can out of the deal. Later that summer, the Dukes was really big because of the movie. The Dukes had a huge year in 2005, 2006. I mean, they knew what they were doing when they cast Jessica Simpson. It was definitely stunt casting, but I mean, she was the biggest thing going at that time. So the Dukes was bigger than it ever was in 2005 and 2006. I did a thing with CMT. I was on. They had this kind of. If you could see me right now, I'm doing air quotes because it was supposed to be a contest. It wasn't actually a contest. It was a strange situation. But I did some things with that. It didn't work out the way they had promised it would. But so I had hoped that CMT would send me to the premiere of the show or the premiere of the movie, but it didn't work out. I just happened to write a letter to Jay Shandrikar, the director. I think I always say his last name wrong, but he's from Super Troopers. He directed the movie. And I wrote some letters and just hoped they'd got to him. Told him about the situation with CMT and how a lot of that stuff didn't work out, but how much of a fan I was, and how much I loved the show, and I got to be an extra, and I really wanted to go to the premiere. And about 3 days before the premiere, I got a phone call from his personal assistant saying that they would love to have me as a guest. I was on the beach in Bethany Beach, Delaware, on vacation with my family, and I got this phone call, and they said, "Can you be here in Los Angeles the day after tomorrow?" And I said, "Yes, I will be there." So I fly out to LA, and it just, as soon as I landed, things got crazy. Me and my girlfriend, we were treated like absolute celebrities. We were special guests of the director. We got to see the movie, at the Chinese theater. At that time, it was Grauman's Chinese Theater. They had a after party right outside in the parking lot. They had it all decked out. It was called the Hazzard County Hoedown. Was it the Hazzard County Hoedown? Now I'm drawing a blank. Hazzard County something or other. It was just absolutely just the best night of my life. I mean, so we got to see the movie on that huge screen, the most famous movie screen in the world. And then after that, we got to go to the after party. They had the most famous generally is the one that Warner Brothers still owns. It was Friends Center right there. It was using the show, used on both reunion movies and using the movie, and is still on their back lot until they replaced it with the giant Batman display. It was still a part of the tour until just last year. It was all part of that. So right off the bat, walking into the after party, I see Sean William Scott from afar asking somebody for their autograph. And I'm thinking, this is Sean William Scott's movie. Who is he asking for an autograph? I had thought that none of the cast was going to be there because a lot of them didn't really agree with the content of the movie. It was basically, the movie was Dukes of Hazzard for the Jackass and American Pie generation, obviously with the stars. So, it wasn't really family friendly.
Right.
But it was, I am a part of the Jackass and American Pie generation. So I definitely appreciate the movie. But so I'm walking into the after party, and I see Sean William Scott asking somebody for their autograph. I have no idea who it was, and I turn to see, and it's John Snyder. I mean, it's my absolute hero, John Snyder. He unadvertised showed up to the premiere. It was just absolutely amazing. I walk up to him, and there's a picture of me just like absolutely starstruck. I mean, at this point, I had interact. I at least know the guy. He knows me, but I was so starstruck to see him there, and it was just so cool. I said, "John, what are you doing here?" He says, "Larry, what are you doing here?" So that was just crazy. That he knew that it was a big deal for me to be there, and it was really fun. And then I got to interact with Jay, the director, so much. I mean, he was just so gracious, so just awesome. He introduced me to his family, made sure we had a good time. I go over to Sean William Scott and I say, I just want to tell you how much I like the show. He says, "Oh, great." Or how much I like the movie. He says, "Oh, great." I say, "I'm Larry Franks." He said, "Wait a second, you're Larry Franks." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Jay told me you were coming." And I said, "What?" He said, I am, really excited to hear your take on my performance as Bo." And that blew my mind. I mean, like, this is, we're at the premiere, and this guy is like excited to hear my take on his performance. And it was crazy. So I told him how much I liked it, how much fun it was, and all this, how the stunts were great. And then I go over to Johnny Knoxville, and he says the same thing. I mean, it was just absolutely amazing that Johnny Knoxville was like excited to talk to me at the premiere for his movie. It was just nuts. I mean, those kind of things just don't happen, and they did happen. It was just so much fun. It was incredible.
I can see how that would be, because they were seeking some sort of probably validation from a super fan, to make sure that they did the franchise right. So I would assume that's kind of what they were looking at from you.
Yeah, I think so. And they were so great to me. I mean, it was just so much fun. And later that night, we had a private concert from Willie Nelson. Just mind blowing. We got to. My girlfriend was a huge fan of Nick Lachey at the time. Like, every woman in America, loved Nick Lachey whenever that show was so big. So we got to hang out with. She hung out with him for a long time, talking about that show Newlyweds that was on at the time, and just had a lot of fun with him. I mean, it was. We got to meet everybody. We got to meet MC Gainey, David Kushner, Joe Don Baker. Everybody was there. Burt Reynolds wasn't there. He didn't stick around for the party. I never really did get to meet him. But all the other cast members, and then the private concert by Willie Nelson, and it was just amazing. The Hazzard County Fair after party was just probably the best night of my life. It was so much fun.
Sounds like it. All right, I have got two things I want to read from Twitter, because earlier today I asked what's your favorite Dukes of Hazzard moment, and I got two responses, and one of them is from Frankie Smith at Frank's a Million.
Yeah, Frankie's a great guy.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah.
He says, when I saw the hashtag General Lee fly for the first time over the river, that jump still amazes me.
Definitely. I'm sure he's talking about the Styx River jump. It's probably at the time, and for a long time, for probably 25 years, it was a record-breaking jump. I think it was something like 175 feet, something around there. And it's just an amazing jump. They reused that in probably 3 episodes and the reunion movie. It's definitely one of the most iconic images from the show. And definitely Frankie knows what he's talking about. He's a big fan, and he's a lot of fun to talk to on Twitter. And I could see why he picked that as one of his favorite moments.
So you said that jump held a record. You mean as far as being on film?
Yeah, well, no, it was one of the largest car jumps ever done for a very, very long time.
Okay. Wow. And all this time I was giving a lot of credit to the jump from Smokey and the Bandit.
Oh yeah, this one definitely blew that one out of the water. This was I think it was season 1, and it was definitely it was a Hollywood jump, and it was just a huge jump. Maybe season. I see that's where I'm on the spot right now, so I forget if it's season 1 or 2. But it's a huge jump, and was record breaking for a very, very long time.
All right, cool. The next one is Jay at Jayhawk2, says TNT plus bow and arrow equal awesome.
Well, the great thing about the show, and it's a unique aspect that they got onto early on the first episode, and they stuck with it, was the fact that Bo and Luke were on probation for running moonshine. Uncle Jesse had made a pact with the U.S. government that the boys can stay out of jail if they stay on probation. So they were not allowed to use guns. So they used bows and arrows. That was their go-to. They never really used them as a weapon. They used them when they had to, but bow and arrows were definitely a big part of the show. And, if they really meant business, they'd stick that TNT on the bows and arrows and made for some awesome results. Early on, they blew up the outhouse. Bo accidentally, he thought he was just trying to weigh the arrows, but he didn't know he had some live TNT on there. And he blew up the outhouse, and then later on they would blow up a good bit of stuff with those bow and arrows, and it was definitely a lot of fun.
Definitely was. I enjoyed that aspect of the show. That's what stuck with me throughout all these years, was the bow and arrows with the TNT.
Yep, and they also made a Bo and Luke archery set, one of the toys, and it has become one of the rarest items out there for sure. It's definitely a holy grail item. And I was very fortunate just this year in January to add one of those to my collection in really, really great condition. It's an unopened piece, and really fortunate to add a bow and arrow archery set to my collection.
Now, this is an actual legit archery set, or is it like a kid's?
No, it's a kid's toy. I mean, it's just a little bow and arrow with a little string and 3 arrows in the box, and it has a quiver and all that kind of stuff. And it's a very cool set, but it's super rare. I mean, even to find the Dukes of Hazzard bow, like the bow and arrows out of the box, would be quite a find. But to find one in the box is definitely a holy grail item. And because of the blog, it was not an eBay item, but it was an item that somebody contacted me through the blog and told me they had it for sale with a bunch of other items. And it was just one of those items that if I didn't have the blog, it would not be a part of my collection. I'm so grateful for that.
So is that one worth more than the pool set?
No, a pool has never sold on the open market. There's never been a pool on eBay. Like I said, no one else has a pool. The pool, I couldn't even put a number on what this thing would go for if I would ever sell it on the open market on eBay or in a open kind of situation. So I don't know. I mean, the pool is definitely a wild card because there's no in the real world. I am a real estate appraiser, so like I would have to use those terms. There is no comparables for a pool. It just hasn't ever sold.
So in essence, to find the value, you'd have to put it out there and just see what happens.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay.
I think because I am a real estate appraiser and because I deal with values a lot, I think that's what's really made me, always look to see what the values of items are. eBay, eBay changes everything. I've been addicted to eBay since December of 1998. I'm always watching to see what things sell for. I'm always keeping those, just a mental log of what things are. So I really like to, stay on top of the values of all the items. They definitely have gone up and down. I mean, 2005, things were going crazy. Prices have definitely settled since then. And then just last July, whenever the show was off the air, prices definitely spiked for, not good reasons. But they've all settled down then. But I have an idea of what mostly every item that I have is worth, except for that pool. No idea.
All right, so now I'm going to ask you a quick question about Twitter. Who's evil Larry Franks?
Who is evil Larry Franks? Well, he just actually walked out of the room with my buddy Jeff, my best friend. He is been hanging out with me. We've been buddies. We've been such good buddies since junior high. We have. He comes along with me on a lot of my Duke's adventures. He's it's funny because he's not a fan of the show. He doesn't dislike the show. He's never really got into it, but he has had more interaction with John Schneider and Ben Jones than most common fans do, just because he's hanging out with me. But just a few months ago, he just decided to mess with me, and he created a Twitter account called Evil Larry Franks and just started tweeting about Dukes. And the most ingenious thing he did was my profile pic is me in front of the General Lee, but the other picture, if you click on my account, I guess it's the account pic. I'm not really sure what it's called. A photo bomb I did with Bo and Luke and Daisy, and it's just a cool picture of the main cast. So he set his Evil Larry Franks account as his profile picture was an inverted picture of me, like so. Instead of General Lee being orange, it was blue, and then his account pic or whatever you call that was a picture of Coin Vance. So right there, that was just absolutely perfect. I'm sure he's right now on the phone with his wife. He is probably upset that he's missing out on the Evil Larry Franks talk. But for a month, it was strange because the day he started it was the day I wrote the blog announcing that I was going to Nashville for the big opening of Daisy Country. So, it kind of freaked me out because, he wasn't directly messing with me, but I had no idea it was him. And so I kind of thought I had a stalker online, which, gave me a big head, made my ego bigger. I have a stalker online. He would just say the weirdest things, and he would always hashtag Dukes of Hazzard, so he knew I would find it. And then once I interacted with him, he would say the weirdest, strangest things. He talked about how his name was Edward Lawrence Franks, and his friends call him Larry, and this kind of stuff. So that's why he's Larry Franks, and he had been in and out of jail, and it's all this weird stuff. This backstory he made up was just so strange, and he did just messing with me for the longest time, and it freaked out my family and my girlfriend. They had thought someone's the fact that it had just started the day that I had said where I'm going to be in a public location, just freaked everybody out, and it freaked me out too. It was a lot of fun, but then whenever he announced, it was 3 days before I'm leaving for Nashville, he had told me, he put on Twitter that it was him. It was this whole time, Jeff even shared with me direct messages that he had with Evil Larry Franks, trying to figure out who he was. So it was such a deep Inception level, just screwing with my mind. It was a great prank. It was a lot of people online were interacting with him, saying, who is this guy? And it was definitely a huge prank that he carried on for about a month and a half. And then at the end of the whole time, he gets a Dairy Queen ice cream cake that says, "I am Evil Larry Franks" on it. And that's how he revealed it to me. So it was, it was crazy. It was definitely it was a fun situation, but it was, looking back, I can appreciate it now, but he freaked me out. It was kind of scary. I know he's going to flip out that he just left the room because he couldn't be a part of this.
Well, hopefully when he listens to the podcast, he'll enjoy the conversation.
Oh yeah, and it's because we're talking about Jeff, because he is a part of this podcast now, I have to have that little plug. Me and him do a little internet comedy sketch show. It's called Franks and Beans. We haven't made a new episode in a few years. It's been about maybe a year, but we have over 50, I think over 60 episodes, 3-minute, 5-minute episodes. So check out franksandbeansonline.com for our brand of humor. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of little Dukes references in it because a lot of it takes place in my, the end, every episode ends in my bedroom with an ongoing joke, and you can see a lot of my Dukes collection in there. So that's the big collection of Dukes. But Jeff is he is currently the writer of the Tick comic book, the big blue guy.
Yeah.
So it's not an '80s thing; it's more of a '90s thing. I mean, the comic book came out in the '80s. He is heading up to Boston, where the comic book is based, at New England Comics. He does this every year. He goes up for Free Comic Book Day, and they always have a new issue of the comic. So support the Tick comic. Check out franksandbeansonline.com. Maybe you'll like what you see. And his website is teddyandtheyeti.com, just to give Jeff a shout out.
Very cool. So more plugging for you, dukescollector.blogspot.com.
And also dukescollector.com. If you forget the blog spot, I own dukescollector.com as well, so it takes you to the blog. I always wanted to have like a separate like database on dukescollector.com that has a link to Blogspot, but I just haven't gotten around to doing that yet. I haven't found anybody. I'm not that good at web hosting, so anybody out there wants to help out with a database of my giant collection, that's the plan. Just haven't gotten around to doing that yet.
Gotcha. And then you're also on Twitter at Larry A. Franks.
Larry A. Franks. Yeah, Larry Franks was taken by somebody who works at Microsoft. But so Larry A. Franks, it's my middle initial, and it works out. It's I do have a lot of fun with Twitter. It's fun to interact with people. I also do every day I post a hashtag generally jumps just to share something, like just to get some video of the show on Twitter. And it seems to be I get a fair number of likes or favorites. I think they changed likes to favorites on Twitter. But I get the
heart.
Fair amount of those, the hearts and the retweets. So people seem to like it. So it's a lot of fun. Twitter is it's a fun little thing to do. I enjoy it. I like talking to Dukes fans, and Twitter lets me do that. Twitter, eBay, the blog. It's a lot of fun to talk to fellow fans.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's how we met. We were, every so often I'd throw a hashtag Dukes of Hazzard thing, and you're almost always responding to those.
I tried to, I search for hashtag Dukes of Hazzard quite often. I try to, get interact with people. It's really helped. I mean, that's how I got a lot of my followers, just by, interacting with them when they mention Dukes. I do something, it helps out. And I have to commend you for your 24-hour battles. I mean, we had 2 hard-fought battles in the last few weeks. The Dukes of Hazzard fans took out Knight Rider, and then surprising to me, we took out Back to the Future in a huge fashion, I would say. What were your thoughts on our Dukes of Hazzard versus the Back to the Future battle we had a few weekends ago?
Yeah, that is the one that really surprised me, because when I first did the 24-hour battle with Back to the Future versus Ghostbusters, it was going crazy. I mean, the DeLorean was just getting so many retweets. It was just through the roof. And I was like, wow, this is going to be a fierce competitor for the Dukes. And so I was actually surprised, that it didn't get as much attention as the Dukes of Hazzard got. And and I'm happy about that. It surprised me. I was really expecting it to be more,
more showing.
Yeah, more of a closer run than it was.
I was a little scared whenever the first, the teaser you released was Uncle Jesse against Doc Brown, and that was neck and neck until the end. I mean, I'm thinking this is gonna be a tough battle. I'm gonna have to really get some supporters for this. But then the next one you did was Daisy Duke against was it Marty's mom?
Yeah, Lorraine.
Against Lorraine, and that Daisy blew her out of the water. I'm sorry, Lorraine, but that was a no contest. But then once the big one started, the General Lee just it destroyed the DeLorean, and I'm happy to say. I mean, so the Knight Rider battle was so much fun. I mean, I am a lover of Knight Rider. I'm a lover of David Hasselhoff. 80s cars. I mean, I love them all. Right in the front of my collection is the Hot Wheels set of every car you can think of. There's Bandit, there's Kit, there's the Ecto, there's a DeLorean. Right beside, General Lee and Roscoe's patrol car. But of course, in my opinion, General Lee inches out just a little bit further. But I love all these cars. I mean, I'm a fan of movie cars for sure. Obviously, I love everything you do. Goonies, my favorite movie. Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, right up there. But the Knight Rider battle was a lot of fun, and the Back to the Future battle really surprised me. It was but I mean, in my opinion, the General Lee, and I think other people share the opinion, the General Lee is the most iconic, the most recognizable car, star car ever created. I mean, I know for a fact that it's the #1 selling model, the model kit that you put together the number one selling model of all time. It's got to be one of the top die casts of all time. I mean, the General Lee is definitely a very, very popular car.
Yeah, it is. And I guess, that's probably a good question to wrap up on. But what do you say to the people that feel that it's, because of the flag that's on top, it's, got some bad roots to it?
It certainly does. I mean, the flag has been used by very bad people. And, I'm not a defender of the flag. I could definitely appreciate people's opinion of the flag as a symbol for hate because people have used it that way. But the flag on top of an orange 69 Dodge Charger with an 01 on the roof and a push bar in the front is the absolute opposite of a symbol of hate. There was never anything hateful or mean-spirited anything on the Dukes. The show was created at a time when the flag really represents Southern pride as well as what other people use it for. But there's a lot of people who, love that flag and feel very passionate about that flag to this day. And they're not wrong. I mean, the flag is definitely it's a symbol that has many, many different meanings. And the meaning of it on top of the General Lee is love, is fun, is, good guys always winning, bad guys not really being bad. I mean, the villains, if you would say, of the Dukes of Hazzard, Boss Hogg and Roscoe are not bad guys. I mean, if they're in trouble, Bo and Luke are going to help them out, even though they're trying to put Bo and Luke in jail. So there's nothing, mean-spirited or hateful about the Dukes of Hazzard, and there's nothing mean-spirited or hateful at all about the General Lee. It is a representation, is a symbol of a show that is about having fun and helping your neighbors. That's all it is. And it's very unfortunate that, this flag stuff happened. It roots to, a very, very sick individual doing a very horrible thing last year. And because of that, the Dukes was number one trend on Twitter last year, which is just, mind blowing. It wish that would have happened for a positive reason. But a lot of people who don't understand the show, have never seen the show, think that, all Dukes fans are redneck racist. And that's very unfortunate that, you're not really, digging into what somebody who loves that show, the reason they love that show. So, just do a little bit of research to see, come to my blog, read about, the huge events with, people of all backgrounds who love the show. That's why somebody has a rebel flag on top of their car, is because they love the Dukes of Hazzard, because they love what Uncle Jesse has taught us, to love your neighbors and to, to be kind to everybody. And a stranger is a friend you haven't met yet. And those kind of things Uncle Jesse tells us, or everybody who has a rebel flag on top of their orange car believes in. And it's a show about love. It really is. It's a show about having fun and flying a car over a river. That's what it is.
And bow and arrow with TNT.
Bow and arrow with TNT. and
Daisy Dukes.
And Daisy Dukes. Yeah. Daisy, very short shorts. I mean, if there was no Dukes of Hazzard, we would not have Daisy Dukes. Think about that, people who don't know what the show was about. I mean, if you see that car, thank that car for the creation of Daisy Dukes, because Catherine Bach made those pants, and they are, the symbol of, just every man in the world is thankful for Daisy Dukes.
Exactly. And the fabulous Catherine Bach.
The fabulous Catherine Bach. She told this great story over the weekend I'd never heard before, that the reason they had, the reason the shorts ended up so tight or so high, is because she was, she took a pair of jeans. The producers wanted her, I had known this, the producers wanted her to wear a skirt made out of, tablecloth material, that red and white plaid you see in a bar. That's what their vision of Daisy Duke was. And Catherine said, that's not who Daisy Duke is. And she said, let me try to, make this character. So she took a pair of jeans, and she was one strand at a time taking these jeans apart. And she said that the reason they got so high is because she kept trying to get them even, and they weren't even. So she kept going higher and higher on the pants. And I'd never heard that story before. So that really got a great reaction at the grand opening of Daisy Country last week. And that's why the Daisy Dukes look the way they do, because she tried to get them even. They kept going higher and higher. So,
oh, what an awesome story.
Very fun stuff. Very, very fun.
All right, Larry, I appreciate your time tonight, man.
Wow, the time has flown by. I can't believe it's been over an hour. I definitely had a lot of fun with this. If you have me again, I'd like to do this one more time. It's been a lot of fun. We could talk about Dukes of Hazzard Legos in the future. We could talk about, the Gold General Lee. I got a lot of things I could talk about if you ever want to do this one more time.
I think we could talk more than just one more time. Because, actually when we talked on what everyone's not going to know, because it wasn't, as private DM,
yeah,
the ideal was about having a presidential style debate with Larry being on the Duke side and then finding somebody to be in on the Knight Rider side. So if we have anybody that listens that's a big fan of Knight Rider that wants to jump in with Larry and I'll play host, we'll see what goes with it. It might be a lot of fun.
I would love it. I've definitely had a lot of interaction. There's definitely a huge Knight Rider fan. I'm not sure if it's as big as the Dukes of Hazzard fan hood, but I've definitely interacted with a lot of great Knight Rider fans at San Diego Comic-Con. I met a few great ones whenever David Hasselhoff was there. They had a kit car there in 2012, and I've met a lot of great fans there. And it'd be a lot of fun if anybody wants to bring it on. I'm a fan of Knight Rider as well, so definitely be lighthearted, definitely be fun. But that'd be great. I'd really look forward to doing something like that.
That'd be a blast. All right, so with that, good night, Larry.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, Dave, and it was a lot of fun, and I look forward to listening to it, and I look forward to your future-ish episodes.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking again. I guarantee it.
Great. All right, I look forward to it. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yep. Good night.
All right. Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.